All right, welcome everybody, and congratulations for making it to the very last moment of the HackATOM. Woo! You're all here making history. We're in the very second in-person one in HackATOM Seoul, so this is awesome seeing everybody here. Our prizes have gotten incrementally bigger over time, which is good for you if you win. So, my name is Chango Unchained, and I am an early contributor of Cosmos Network, and right now I'm an advisor to Osmosis, and I myself run a validator called Interchain FM Stake. So don't stake with any of them, stake with my validator, obviously, 100% uptime. Anyway, let's go with some intros from this side all the way to over there. Also, you want to support the women in blockchain, by the way. I'm just kidding. None of the men laugh. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is David. I work on partnerships and investments at Cosmostation. For those of you who haven't heard of us, we're a validator node operator across 40 to 50 different protocols. We also run end user applications like MintScan and Cosmostation mobile wallet extension. And we support the networks that we run a validator for with these end user applications. And please stake with us.
Okay, hello. My name is Hyungkyu at DSRV, and we are also supporting various Cosmos blockchains and also other blockchains. And so we are also providing many development tools for developers, and also we are welcome everybody to join us. So please contact us if you are interested. Thank you.
Hi, I'm June Park. I'm the founder and CEO of Provalidator. As many of you know, Provalidator, we're validating across several networks, most of the major networks across the Cosmos ecosystem. We're more focusing on the validator side, but we look forward to expand in other areas such as providing community tools and also like analytics tools to the community. And yeah, I look forward to communicating more with the overall Korea community.
Hi everybody, I'm Teddy. I'm a protocol specialist at Stakefish, and Stakefish likes to focus on governance, and that's what I do. And we validate a variety of Cosmos chains.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I work in business development and ventures at Chorus One. We're a multi-chain validator operating across 30 plus networks. Right now we're probably a team of around 40 people, mostly sort of engineers and researchers. And earlier this year we announced our venture fund to support some projects that we are particularly excited about. So anybody here wants to chat, give me a shout after this, and yeah, excited to talk.
All right, thank you to all the validators. And since this is such a, the Cosmos ecosystem is growing exponentially, and all of you are part of the community, so let's get to know you guys. How many of you guys also run validators or have run a validating node? Can you translate, Erica?
발리데이터 돌려보신 분 혹시 계실까요? 손 좀 들어주시겠어요? 혹시? 손?
How many of you know what sentry nodes are?
센트리 노드가 뭔지 아시는 분? 손?
All right, quite a bit of you. How many of you want to run a validator in the future?
돌리시고 싶으신 분, 검증인 하시고 싶으신 분? 손?
Okay, very cool. So this entire panel is going to be about how to run a validator, how to contribute to the Interchain ecosystem if you aren't already. So yeah, let's talk to you guys. How have you guys gotten started? How was it to bootstrap your validator? Was it difficult, easy? What's the barrier to entry like? Costs? I mean, we just start like this in this direction.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of the validators may have different strategies when they approach how to onboard delegators to their validator node. For us, it was to provide infrastructure like end user applications like the MintScan Explorer that I just talked about, and a mobile wallet. And bootstrapping your validator with delegators is a difficult task. You not only do you have to focus on providing value like I just explained, you also have to communicate with your delegators and figure out what types of services they need. And also, Yeah, do a lot of due diligence on the new networks that you're onboarding as a validator node.
For me, yeah, we started validating the blockchains because we want to know the protocol much more. So if you want to know some protocols, then I suggest to run a node. You can start from the float, and you can next time you can start a validator node. And I think that running a validator node requires some professional skills, but at first, I think that currently many blockchains provide an easy way to start a validator node, and so I think that most of developers can, or even non-developers can start a validator node. The problem is that if there is something happen unexpected, then I think you need some more skills and some expertise to run a node. So I think that running a node itself is not a hard problem, but it is the problem is that how to solve the problem if there is some problem occurs. So that's my opinion, and yeah.
I think the quintessential thing of running a validator is building a community. I started validating at Lunamint, and in the beginning, what we tried to do was we tried to really expand the Korean community, educate the community so that more people could engage in the entire ecosystem. Likewise, I think the technical contributions, the technical prowess is also very important, but in the end, it's really about expanding the pie, building a community, and educating those community to become potential delegators. So if there's anybody who really wants to start a validator, I think the most important thing is building a vibrant community, regardless of the region. So yeah.
Yeah, so at Stakefish, we think about the key aspect of getting people to delegate to us as a piecemeal combination of strategies. One of the strategies that I guess I think about a lot is just confidence and governance, and that is something that just requires man hours, where people are thinking about proposals, building relationships, talking with people in the ecosystem, and then broadcasting what you're doing. And hopefully people will see that if they delegate to a validator that's participating in governance and trying to govern the chain well, that's good for their token's value.
Yeah, so I mean, Chorus has been around since 2017, and I think it's important to point out that from a technical perspective, things are going to change quite a lot, particularly in the Cosmos ecosystem, as we're seeing things like interchain security. So maybe from a technical perspective, we're not best advised to talk about how to get something going from the ground up. However, I do think some of the common themes that we've mentioned here, like community development and governance, these are all really consistent, important themes that you should probably be aware of. And also, I guess, just the responsibility that you have as a validator, it shouldn't be taken lightly. You are supporting a network, and I think that should be something that you should focus on and take seriously.
Right. The thing in Cosmos Proof of Stake is that it's all reputation based, and so as you can tell, each one of us has had different entry points into the ecosystem before we started validating, and so it's similar to here, right? If you're participating in this hackathon, you kind of have formulated a team here. If you win, you get your name out there, and then for branding purposes, you could say, okay, well, my team won, and this is the same name for my validator, and you're going to start building a reputation from there. So you could bootstrap in basically any way that you want, as long as there's a will, there's a way. I mean, I know most of the people here are developers, but if you're not a developer like myself, but you have something else to bring to the table and would partner with somebody who has the right skills to run a validator, you could do that as well. So it's just, you get started in any way you want. That's just the point that I'm trying to make.
I would just echo that. I think I've met two kinds of validators. You've got the people who are just very good at marketing, and they've just kind of accidentally fallen into validation. They do very well because they're good at the marketing side of things.
Right.
And then there are validators who are excellent from a technical perspective, but maybe don't have the marketing expertise. Mm-hmm. There's a happy medium in there somewhere, right?
Right, exactly. And so that, the idea with my podcast is it's like a lost leader, but it's sort of like the top of the top of the funnel marketing channel, and then you get them down to validation. And the same thing with Cosmostation is your loss leader is the wallet. You guys don't make any revenue, but because you guys have built such goodwill in the community, people are willing to delegate to you. And because it's your interface, you put Cosmostation Validator as like the top one, and everyone just delegates to it by default. So all that's very interesting. As long as you're very creative with your business process, then you could do anything. All right, that being said, what are the risks and costs of running a validator? Are there any risks?
From there. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. Should I go? Okay. Yeah, I mean, right now the markets aren't in the best conditions, so times like these could be, one of the risks that a validator operator could face. Revenue could decrease significantly in events like this. So it's always important to sort of balance your balance sheet well and prepare for incidents like this. And also another risk would be, it's associated with the first thing I talked about. It's really difficult for a validator to stop operating a node for a network that we don't see any reason in continuing to participate in. So once we put up a validator node for a network, it's almost impossible for us to put that down. And you could do that, but it's not a good look for you, reputation-wise. So there's that risk as well. And yeah, I think I'll pass the mic.
Okay, I also agree with him, and the participating is very hard to, and actually we did not participate in any protocols because we created the protocols to participate, because we also agree with him that it's very hard to participating, and I think that I want talking about some technical aspects of risk, and that in the, most of you know that there is a double slashing, and the downtime slashing is provided by Cosmos-based blockchains. And yeah, that when we think of the double slashing and downtime slashing, most of the teams think that they can prevent it from being slashed, but actually there can be some possibility that double slashing can be happened if there is some human mistakes or some kind of some hackers intruded and get the key and launch on another node, so that it can be happen. So it's very hard to prevent it from being slashed at all. So yeah, we always have to make it can be happen, so that we have to prevent it from being slashed. So that's as a technical aspect. That's the only point we are concerning now, and the other aspects are some kind of financial things and economic things. Then, for that, I think that the market cannot be predicted by anybody. So, because I'm a CTO at the DSRV, so I'm concerning the technical aspects, and for the market thing, I think the others can talk about that risk more. Thank you.
I think there's two risks when it comes to running a validator. One risk is about the operational risk. So, as you know, validator is a business, so it needs to have revenue, and then you need to cover the costs. There's server costs. There's employees. So if the market condition changes to a more bearish environment, as a business, it becomes more hard to secure runway, secure, the balance sheet. So I think that's one risk of running a validator. The second one is the technical side. So as David and CTO mentioned, there's like double signing and a lot of risks that is related to running a validator. And sometimes, validators become victim of bugs that cannot be predictable. So if there's a specific bug in a code that we run, even though it was not intentional, we might end up in a situation where we face like double slashing, double signing. And in that situation, we need to persuade, we need to explain the situation to our delegators, and also cover the losses that they faced. So yeah, I think we can summarize. There's like operational business risk, a logistical risk, and then also a technical risk.
So I don't think of running a validator as being a particularly risky area of business, but I would mention one more risk, which is undelegation risk. If you have a big delegator who dominates your delegation, then that actually is a lot of centralization on your revenue. So you want to keep that delegator happy, but ideally you wouldn't have that kind of centralized delegation.
Yeah, without kind of covering what these guys have already talked about, I'd probably add some of the softer stuff as well. Like for instance, if you get to a position where you can scale and you need to have employees and people in place, I guess just remain mindful of the fact that you're securing a lot of value, and you need to have trustworthy employees, right? And it needs to be a very trustworthy environment. And maybe on top of that as well, I'd add maybe there's some regulatory nuance, which is probably quite important around custodians and ownership of tokens, and that's an ever-evolving area, so definitely something to remain mindful of.
All right, well, thank you guys for your insights. So in terms of P&L, and I know each of us is running validators for various different Cosmos SDK chains, which chains are the most profitable that you could sell. Some of you guys also aren't exclusively running validators for the Cosmos ecosystem, right? So yeah, we could talk about the ones that you guys are validating for outside of it as well, if they're more profitable, and why.
For some time, Chihuahua was actually, pretty profitable, and but it's not profitable anymore. Like I said before, it's always important that you get significant, I guess, like some runway in order for you to like keep operating your node. But right now, I think the most profitable would be Cosmos or Osmosis. I'm not sure if I have the exact numbers in my head right now, but yeah, that's what I think is most profitable right now.
Yeah, as mentioned before that I don't trying to break the markets, and so someone told me that Validator is basically born to be a long position in the market. So yeah, so that's why we are experiencing hard times during the last bear market, and I think that the validator is a role to secure the network. So yeah, I think I don't want to take some kind of proactive approaches to the market. So yeah, just passive and want to provide some secure and stable networks. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Regarding profitability, reputational-wise, I think Cosmos Hub is the most profitable chain that we operate, since it's not the canonical chain, but it's the most valued chain within the Cosmos ecosystem. So yeah, strategically, I think Cosmos Hub for us it's most profitable reputation-wise. In terms of financially profitable, currently, I don't have the exact numbers, but recently, I think Evmos was very profitable. It was pretty lucrative, and also Osmosis was very helpful for the balance sheet. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing Osmosis at the top of our charts. Osmosis.
All right. So, as the community, maybe we could ask you guys questions and see what you guys want out of your selected validators and what you want to see out of people, like what sorts of improvements or feedback you guys have. Yeah, hey, can I get a translator? Oh, yeah, okay. Can you? Yeah, well, I just want to poll the audience to see what you guys actually want out of your validators.
Question over here.
Okay. Let me translate this real quick, and then I'll take your question. Sorry. 저희뿐만 아니라 이제 검증인들한테서 원하시는 어떤 모습들이나 그런 서비스들이나 뭐 그런 것들이 있는지 질문을 하시네요. Hey, could you please, yeah.
So you talked a bit about the operational risk due to slashing, and I was wondering, if you had thought of any changes that could be made to the way slashing works. As far as I'm aware, the way it works currently is partially due to like historical reasons and simplicity. There's a lot of room for change, I believe. Have you thought about that? Have you lobbied for changes? Have you talked with developers of the SDK of how to get changes in slashing?
I mean, I don't necessarily see slashing conditions as some sort of like legacy antiquated thing. It's there for a reason, for security. And so for people who are not happy about the 14-day unbonding period, you know, if they just want liquid assets, there's plenty of solutions out there that people are building, like liquid staking or like interfluid staking from Osmosis, to solve that user issue without compromising the underlying security of a proof of stake chain. Because the 14-day unbonding period is there to mitigate the longest chain attack, which is, do you know the long range attack, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I mean, I think the way it works now definitely achieves the goal, but there may be other ways to achieve the same goal without such large risk for you guys, for the validators. So I'm just wondering if alternatives were considered.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's
Thank
pretty
you.
like, yeah, the tenement way of doing slashing is the gold standard for proof of stake security. Yeah. And it remains that way.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
질문 혹시 있으신 분들? Any other questions? Oh.
I had a question for the panelists. So across different Cosmos chains, there's a lot of community funds that gets accrued, and not a lot of them are being actually deployed or being used at all. I was curious if the validators could chime in on like what they think should happen with the community funds. Like, should they just sit there, or should we start like deploying them? I'm just curious about each of the validators' thoughts around that fund.
I feel like if there's a lot, like if there's enough community funds sitting there, they should be deployed into teams that are building meaningful, things for the ecosystem. For example, like infrastructure services, like API services, or even end user apps like wallets. It's always good to have a lot of wallet options. So I feel like if there are teams that are building, like I guess front ends as well for the chain, it would be nice to deploy those funds in order to fund the development of things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think more kind of like social impact or sort of environment, ecosystem support would be a great way to use those funds, particularly if those funds are increasing, which I suspect they will do over the next sort of few months, years with interchain security. I guess it's just, it's how do you decide on how to allocate? That's the golden question, right? So, yeah, I don't know, but interesting area.
I think it depends on the chain. I mean, if the chain is oriented around AMMs, for example, Osmosis, then they're going to try to build out that ecosystem of functionality. But if there's another chain that focuses on, I don't know, DogDAO, then it's going to have a completely different agenda for spending money. But yeah, I think it should probably think of it a lot more like, I guess depending on the chain, kind of like a business where make sure you get return for your money. And don't necessarily walk around like just trying to spend it, letting it burn a hole in your pocket. Like you can wait and spend it when there's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I also agree with all the other folks. I think it's really subject to governance, so it's like an open decision, and it's also subject to a specific chain. So I don't think there is like a de facto one standard. It really depends. It's very subjective. It's open, and yeah, I think this is an issue that should be discussed through the governance too.
Yeah, basically I agree with the various opinions already mentioned, and basically I think the blockchain is about the decentralization and permissionless. So I think that the decision can be made by anybody with any other reasons, depending on their position. So yeah, I think there is no answer for the question. So yeah, thank you.
All right.
Hello. My question is about acquiring scalability in terms of participating in governance. Our team also runs validators on multiple Cosmos app chains, but it's quite significantly lower than the companies that you guys represent. And if you participate in like 20 plus or 30 plus, 40 plus like ecosystems, there would be like a lot of like governance proposals that you have to like go through and like do the votes. How do you kind of manage the resources internally, and how do you scale when you grow into 10 plus, 20 plus ecosystem validator participant?
Okay. Yeah, actually that's the problem we are supporting now, because the one problem is that not the number of the protocols, but there are some kind of conflict of interest now between chains and between protocols and between DApps. So yeah, actually we are trying to solve it by maintaining some research teams inside and many business aspects. So we have to consider business aspects and the technical aspects all together, and it's very complicated. So yeah, actually we do not have a solution yet, and we are also trying to solve the problem. So thank you for the question, and I think others can add some.
First of all, we try to utilize the tools that are provided in the broad ecosystem. So a lot of wallet providers and also MintScan, there's like good dashboards where you can see aggregated governance proposals across several chains. But when it comes to actually voting specific governance proposals, I think there's like a layer of steps that we go through. So first, we internally make our own decision, but we don't, vote for the governance just right away. We try to reach out to very vocal community members and try to listen to what they think about. And listening to them and communicating them, we come back to our internal team and then decide whether we're gonna stick to our previous vote or we're gonna change to another vote. So I think the governance process, how you vote, that's different among validators. But yeah, I think, the most important thing is always trying to listen to the community when you decide to vote. So yeah.
Oh, I would add to that as well, which is, yeah, the super straightforward way of scaling it up is by polling your community. So that's what we do too, and this was inspired by what Orbital Apes does as well, which is they just maintain a community of people on Telegram and Discord, and then every time there's a governance vote, they poll the community, their delegators, and then we basically say, okay, we're just going to take this straightforward majority vote, yes or no, and do that for every single chain that you support. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's not tooling right now to verify that they're delegators, but there should be when they're doing polls. I think this is a really complicated problem. Like, there's going to be many different angles through which I believe it'll be solved over time. One of the angles is that I think that as a small validator, you can, in essence, redelegate your vote to a bigger validator that has the resources to think about smaller chains that may not be on your radar. And then once you get to a sufficient enough size and you have the resources to employ a protocol specialist, then you can vote on your own. Another, I think, angle that will lead towards a solution is that I think chains have a lot of work to do when it comes to delegating decision making to sub-DAOs and to I guess more sophisticated government structures, so that you can have panels of experts that are appointed, or just better systems, so that there's money that can pay people to think about things, and it's not just kind of like icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, I think before, when we talked about risks of being a validator, I think we overlooked the potential ethical risks of being a validator, and this is when you start talking about governance and you're interacting with real people in a community, and the impact of your decision can really affect their lives. We've seen this on multiple occasions with various different chains. And so, you know, I think there's not really a neat or short answer. I think it really boils down to having a team that is willing to work very hard, be immersed within the ecosystem, understand what's going on in that ecosystem, and you know, be willing to work long hours to make sure that you stay on top of the game. And obviously then balancing that across various different networks so that your mission and values as a company is all aligned across the various different networks. So it's not easy. I think you just need a good team.
Yeah, we have an internal governance committee of 5 people, but that's only like a semi-solution, right? And for each governance proposals, there are many different aspects to it. And as a validator, we not only have to represent the delegators, but also have to take into account the health of the network, et cetera, and everything. So it's always there's always a lot of conflict of interest for some governance proposals. So for more pressing proposals, we try to like do more active discussions internally and also check what our delegators think and the overall community thinks as well.
Right. The other strategy is that, you know, if you're a validator, if you're a thought leader in any specific ecosystem, but are not necessarily a top validator in terms of delegations, you could educate the community through your vote alone. And so, well, yeah, our validator specifically is very opinionated about what L1s in Cosmos that we validate for, and the reason for that is because we don't want to kind of scale up in terms of overhead with all the governance. You know, if we're not familiar enough with the protocol, then we're not able to make informed decisions. So that's another strategy as well. Okay, do we have any last questions from the audience before the validators sign off?
Hi, so I have a question about governance apathy problems. Obviously, it's like a pretty well-known problem in the crypto space. I think Cosmos ecosystem is a little bit unique in a way that it probably has a bit more participants, active participants, but I guess what kind of best practice have you guys seen that encourages people to actively participate or think about like who to delegate to, and then what are things you guys think should exist to also help that process as well?
For one, so Cosmostation Mobile has a notification thing where where we notify our delegators, no, not the delegators, but the users of the current active proposals. So I think maybe tools like that could help a little bit in boosting participation in proposals. We're trying to do something more similar to that on MintScan as well, try to inform people better on the front page, for example, or try to make it more visible so that people can actively look for governance proposals and look in the details, and maybe even provide like a place for people to, you know, have discussions on governance proposals on MintScan. So that's something that we've been considering, something like that. We're trying to alleviate it with our end user apps.
Yeah, actually, basically, we do not know who delegates to our validators. So yeah, that's the problem. And as he mentioned, that we're trying to let delegator know about the governance by using Twitters or Telegrams or Discords. But basically, it depends on how the community works, I think. And unfortunately, there are a lot of communities for one protocols. It's basically good things because it's decentralized. So yeah, so actually, what we can do is that using the SNS or many channels or some tools, as he mentioned, that we trying to let users pay attention to the governance things. But as you already know, there's too many spam news and announcements from the protocols because there are a lot of participants. So we are trying to create the message about the important governance from other spamming governance proposals. So that's what we are now focusing on and trying to create the proposals which is much more important and yeah, important. We try to create the proposals. Yeah, that's what we are doing now.
I think the most effective way to encourage more delegators to participate in governance is really focusing on the message rather than the the methodologies. So we have various ways, community communication channels to let the community know that there is a specific governance being voted right now. But I think it's really important to explain to the delegators and the community why this specific governance proposal is important to you. So some governance proposals really affect, I would say, the balance of each single delegator. It could be like an airdrop governance. It could be a governance related to slashing mechanisms, minimum commission fees. So if whether that's a validator or a team or a thought leader, if you really focus on explaining why this specific governance proposal could affect you, I think that could be a very effective way to boost governance participants across the ecosystem.
It's a really good question. I think that most people don't care about governance in the ecosystem. I mean, I know that there's a small section that definitely do, but I think that the question of how to make people care is hard. I think that fundamentally blockchains are these sort of political objects, and we don't think of them that way. We generally think of them as these economic or these technological objects. And I think that conceptual inheritance really limits everybody's ability to get excited about governance because they think of it as being like icing on top of the cake, to use that expression again. So yeah, I mean, to the extent that we can start to rebrand blockchains as being these big governance machines, and explain to people that these things don't run themselves, like they're not autonomous. And they certainly are not in a good state to support increased adoption right now. And there's going to be a lot of work that it takes to get there. Then people will start to figure out that it matters how they vote, and it matters who they stake with, and it's not just about picking up rewards.
I want to just add to that because what you brought up is really interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. But right, so I don't think that there needs to be such emphasis on every single individual delegator voting on every single thing and caring about every single thing, because at the end of the day, the Cosmos DPoS mechanism is sort of like a representative democracy where you kind of inherit the votes of your validators. And so like even we see very, very low like individual wallets overturning the votes of their validator. But we see very high turnout for validators voting. And so, if you're pretty deliberate about who you delegate with, and pay attention occasionally to how they're voting, and how they're thinking, then I think that's as much as you need to do. But that being said, there's Jake Hartnell mentioned a lot, like that governance tooling is just so early, and not like if you're a marketer, you shouldn't necessarily need to care or know like how to vote for a technical decision, and likewise, if you're a developer, you shouldn't necessarily need to vote on something that's like outside of your expertise, like marketing or whatever. So there's just a lot of progress to be made in terms of the granularity of what governance is supposed to address, like selecting a group of people to vote on marketing initiatives, maybe having like multiple choice in governance decisions rather than like a binary choice, yes, no. Yeah, so anyway, that's a little spiel. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a huge education piece needed, generally, not even just on governance. I think you're right. People don't care about governance, generally speaking. But also people, I think, don't even really understand what staking is. There's a huge retail audience who don't really understand what they're doing when they're participating in a network. And so I think, yeah, there's a big education piece needed. From our side, to answer your question directly in terms of what are we doing, we have a really strong research team who focus on Cosmos specifically. And I think going forward, we're planning to put out a lot more content, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's an article. And that does two things. It educates our audience, lets them kind of know what the impact of a potential decision could be. But it also tells them what our stance is, because we're quite vocal about our position. And so if their values don't align with our values for whatever reason, they can decide, to touch on what you said, to go with somebody who else that does. And so I think communication, education, all those kind of fluffy terms are pretty important.
All right, well, thank you everyone for listening in, and thank you to the validators for providing their valuable insights. I think you guys are all here to learn who the winners are. Obviously, the judges have completed deliberation, so let's just wrap up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for moderating.